Today on Fantasy OT, we're going to talk about three players whose stock is on the rise. Up first, the man who backed up Bijan Robinson at Texas, Roshan Johnson. Johnson was drafted in the 4th round this year by the Chicago Bears, and I think he's going into a great situation. Nobody ran the ball as much as the Bears except for the Falcons, who had one more attempt than them, but they ran it 558 times. So in my mind, they can definitely support two fantasy backs. The number 2 job behind Khalil Herbert is up for grabs. The only competition that Johnson really has is Deontay Foreman, but Johnson is a better pass blocker and a better receiver, so I think at the very least, he's going to get some receiving work right away. But really, I think they drafted him to help with pass blocking. That's a deficiency for Khalil Herbert, and Justin Fields took way too many hits last year. So I think it's really probable that we see Johnson on the field for 3rd down packages, and it wouldn't be surprising to see him eat into 1st and 2nd down work if he can prove to stay healthy and run efficiently in between the tackles. The only problem for him is that the Bears have a bottom 10 offensive line, but he is a power back. At 6 foot 225, he's a one-cut, run downhill type of guy, and he's really good at breaking tackles. So if he's able to do that consistently, he'll definitely carve out a pretty sustainable role and should have a pretty good lock on that number 2 job. Right now, he's being drafted around that 13-14 turn, which I think is incredibly fair for someone with this much upside, especially in an offense that runs the ball this much. Up at number 2, Romeo Dobbs. With Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb out of town, I think Dobbs has a clear pathway to steady targets. He had a lot of hype around him coming into his rookie season last year, and I think the hype he has around him this year is just as warranted. I think him and Love showed they have a good connection. Last year, he caught 2 of Love's preseason touchdowns, and I can't imagine that non-translating onto the field during the regular season. Dobbs flashed his potential numerous times throughout the season, but unfortunately, he dealt with an ankle injury, limiting him to only 12 games last season. He still ended the year with 42 receptions, one more than his fellow rookie mate Christian Watson, and I think he's proven that he's a slightly better route runner, which I think is going to equate to more consistent play. It wouldn't surprise me if Dobbs establishes a more stable floor than Watson. Don't get me wrong, Watson definitely has a much higher ceiling, but there's something to be said about a receiver that you can plug in and not think about. I think Dobbs, to begin the season, is a very solid WR3, but it won't be long before he establishes WR2 value. I think last year he also had to deal with the whole distraction around Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers definitely was very public about his dismay for both of his rookie receivers. Anytime they had miscues, drops, or just weren't on the same page, I think that pressure is going to be alleviated this year. I would imagine that Dobbs is going to feel a lot more comfortable and be able to just focus on playing instead of the drama that came with all of that. Right now, he's being drafted between the 12th and 15th rounds, which is kind of a wide range, but if you are on the fence about drafting him, I would definitely draft him closer to the 12th round. Topping our list, Tank Bixby. Bixby was taken 88th overall in the 3rd round this year, and he's already flashed his potential numerous times during the preseason. I think a lot of people were thinking the job is locked up by Travis Etienne because he was a 1st-round pick. He has Trevor Lawrence, who was his quarterback both at Clemson and now on the Jaguars. So there was no reason to bring anybody else in. But I think we need to think twice about that. Bixby was definitely drafted for a reason. While Etienne definitely had a great campaign last year, he also struggled in some pretty big areas. He had 5 fumbles, losing 3 of them, and he had 40 attempts inside the red zone, but was only able to punch in 4 of them for scores. That was 6th most in the league, ahead of guys like Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Christian McCaffrey, and most elite RB1s except for Austin Eckler. So I think he left something to be desired. I think Bixby's definitely going to get red zone work, and it doesn't help that Bixby has a very similar skill set to Etienne. He's a great pass catcher. He's also pretty big at 6 foot, 213 pounds. So it wouldn't surprise me if he eats into Etienne's early down work as well. If Etienne struggles the same way he did last year with the red zone and fumbles generally, I don't think it'll be long before this becomes a complete timeshare. And if Etienne were to miss any time or be limited, that would put Bixby in RB1 territory immediately. If you're on the fence about drafting him, you should definitely be aggressive. I think he's going to have a role immediately and some good standalone value, and he may end up being one of the biggest steals of both the real draft and fantasy drafts. Those are 3 players whose stock I think is rising quickly. Please subscribe and leave your thoughts on whose stock you think is rising quickly in the comments below.